Right on.
We could just say welcome back to another edition of War Cry Sitrep. So we are here with Dan Rhymes. What's up,
Hmm.
man?
What up?
What's up,
How's it?
homie?
Yeah, so Dan is going to talk to us about some of the various pipelines he's been involved in. You started out with the Army.
I did.
You were a Ranger, a Green Beret, and then you went into Air Force Combat Control, right?
I did. I couldn't get enough, man. I love the pain that much.
Yeah, you sound like Dave Goggins. You know who that guy is, right?
I think I've heard that name before.
Yeah, he was a TAC-P who went Navy SEAL. He does ultra marathons now, but he tried out for Delta as well.
Cardio
It's
for
the same
cowards.
thing. What?
I said cardio's for cowards.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
He did the same reason though. He just wanted new challenges though.
It was always personal, man. Basically what happened was I was there at college. It was back in 1991. Desert Storm, Desert Shield kicked off. I remember looking at the TV, and I was like, man, I'm doing nothing here, and I'm doing nothing with my life. So I basically started researching. I researched all services. I tell this to the guys all the time, Took about 6 months. Originally was going in for a Navy SEAL contract. I had all the paperwork done. I was up at MEPS, sitting there. It was a 6-year contract, and the dude asked me, I don't know whether it was the liaison or if it was a recruiter. He asked me how old I was, and I said I was 23. And he goes, well, that's going to change your contract just a little bit. I go, well, what do you mean? And he goes, well, your GI Bill is going to be cut down to 10 grand instead of 30 grand. And I remember my dad was behind me because he was military as well. He's freaking out because I was just, hey, this was just needed an attitude adjustment. That's what I needed. I remember sitting back and I took a deep breath. Luckily for me, I was mature enough to not say fuck it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to reapproach this thing. So that's how I ended up walking over to the Army. They showed me that video for Rangers. It's like 4 years, 28.5 for school. Here we go. And that's how it all began. So went through basic, right after basic, right into airborne. And you guys have been to airborne school, obviously. You've seen RIP students get smoked as you're graduating. You guys have had to see that shit, man, because it's pretty hilarious. So
Actually, I never got the opportunity to go to jump school. I'm just a dope on a rope, buddy.
there you go. I don't believe that. So yeah, I ended up going to RIP. RIP back then was 3 weeks. I think it's called RASP now, and I think it's 6 weeks because the demands on Rangers are much higher now. Initial strike force for the Army and quick reaction raid, I believe, is their deal. So did Rangers for 4 years, 92 to 96. Was a 60 gunner. That's how we're aging me. That's how old I am. Ended up Somalia happened. I did not participate in Somalia, but that's when we changed over to the Mag 58, which is now called the 240G. So I became a 240 gunner because we ditched the 60. Did that for another couple of years. Went through Ranger School. Got my tab in 94. I think Haiti kicked off while I was in Ranger School. Yeah. So got back from Ranger School after I got my tab and then went into sniper section. And that was about the last year that I was in battalion. Did not go to sniper school, but got all the benefits of hanging out with snipers and actually worked with TAC-Ps. That's where the first time I came in contact with TAC-Ps and combat control because they were attached to the sniper teams there at battalion. So that was pretty cool. I can't remember Klutz. You guys might have known him. He was there. I think he retired chief now, but he was the main TAC-P there at Bravo Company, 1st 75th. So after I got out, I went directly into the Guard. I didn't want to lose time, and I still had the opportunity. I went and did an interview with 20th Special Forces Group. They accepted me. I went through their pre-selection, which was pre-SFAS, and it was held at Camp Blanding, Florida.
Love that place.
I know, man. It's just a wasteland.
I think you and I had a conversation about Blanding.
Yeah. So on the south end of it is, I think, Keystone Heights. That's where they held SFAS. Well, I had the bright idea that I didn't need to train for this thing. So I partied all summer because, I got out like in May. And then I came back here for Walton Beach, partied all summer, and thought I could just pull this selection out of nowhere without training. Well, once we started doing team events, I don't even think I was 100 meters into it, and I started puking all over the place. But, yeah, it was about a 10-day selection. And Star Nav, all kinds of goodness. And it was August in Florida, so you know how hot that is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Obviously made it through that, got selected to go to selection. I ended up going to selection March of 97.
Did you start training this time?
Yeah, dude. From the time that I got out of the pre-selection, it was on. I mean, I didn't mess around. So I was running a lot. I was rucking a lot. And I just completely was focused. So and I think that's something that these guys that are looking into this career field, either they want to do it, either they got that fire in the belly that they want to do it. For me, once I had that attitude adjustment, it was game on. So I started out with I think 225 candidates for SFAS, and I think we ended up graduating 80. One of the takeaways that I got from SFAS, not only did I have a rucksack on my back the whole time, but maturity played a big part in getting selected. I mean, if you stepped out of line, if you were a joker or a prankster, or you didn't take the psych eval seriously, you were one of the guys that got weeded out, even if you were, I think it was a 21-day non-select, they would call that. And yeah, they pull you for just being immature or having a perception of being immature. So, there's a time to joke and there's a time to be serious. That's what I kind of took away from that. And I actually saw it in the Q course as well. I had guys that just weren't taking the course seriously. They were doing good, but they just weren't their mature level, I guess is what you want to call it. But they focused on that quite a bit. Q course is the only course that I've ever gone through that was just straight through. I always called myself Danny 2 times. Like in Ranger School twice, broke myself quite a few times in Ranger Bat. Of course, the attitude adjustment. Never think that something's going to be easier than what it is. I always found that if I expected it to be hard and that's how I trained, then I was prepared mentally and physically for whatever challenge that was coming. That's kind of the attitude that I took. I also looked at things like, okay, so this is a pretty bad situation. It can always be worse, right? I think, you can always look at a situation and say how bad it sucks, but it could always suck worse. That's kind of my takeaway on military training in general. So I did the Q course, obviously graduated that as well, 18 Echo. So comm sergeant. I went back, did some deployments with 20th Group. One was down in Puerto Rico, no big deal, just regular stuff. Wanted to do scuba school because I love the water. They said that they were going to do that for me. They never came through. So that's kind of how I exited. I was a cop in Savannah at the time, so I was traveling between Savannah and Camp Blanding to do my drill. I had some buddies that were over at the 23rd. They showed me around. Still wanted to do the military thing. My ambition with the cop deal, being a Savannah PD, was doing U.S. Marshals or ATF. That was kind of a stepping stone that I was looking at doing. So that didn't work out for me. I ended up getting a contract, taking a pass test, and then I was on delayed entry. So delayed entry was about 4 or 5 months. I did pass my first pass test. It's actually up on my website that I use for my current job right now. I found it. I can't believe I found it. It's in paper pile. But yeah, it was a 1,000-meter swim, of course, a 1.5 mile run, push-ups, sit-ups, flutter kicks, and it was pretty interesting. So it was good that I found that. That was cool. Ended up training for about 4 or 5 months. I remember December 28th was the date that I entered the Air Force there at Lackland. And by the following week, I think January 3rd, I was in NDOC. So NDOC started out with 120 dudes. And by week 2, we were down to, I think, about 40. And by the end of Hell Week, which I blew my knee out, but I finished Hell Week, we were down to 12. So I ended up having surgery after Hell Week. They sent me over to Keesler for rehab. And so I got my air traffic control. I was getting ready to go back to NDOC there at Medina. And that was still co-joined with the PJs. We're stepping out, and as we were stepping out, they're like, I thought it was a trick. Controllers over here, PJs over there. I was like, man, what the fuck's going down now, So that was when everything went AST, Advanced Skills Training, and then, NDOC stayed with PJs, and we kind of broke ties with one another. Training pipeline was a good 2.5 years in length. I'd say for controllers, the real selection would be Combat Control School. I also got broke there as well. That was a 3-month school. On day 3 of the final FTX, which is about a 10-day FTX, ended up breaking my ankle. They sent me back, and they were like, okay, you got a choice of either recycle or go back out. I said, you know what? Or do whatever you want to do. I was like, you know what? I've already broke myself enough times. I'm going to finish this thing off. And so ended up wrapping that ankle up and finishing out that FTX, man. It was insane. In fact, the guy that I was with last night, Ryan Wallace, he flew out early this morning. He actually flew himself, man. It's pretty crazy. He lives in Tucson now. But ended up running the last 2 miles of the 18-miler, which was about an 80-pound rucksack, and with my ankle being all jacked up. Got my beret. Came down here for Walton Beach because that was where they started the advanced skills training. So I was the initial class that actually started the thing. It was me and about 6 others or 8 others, something like that. I did do, I think it was week 3 passed on my ankle. Got through the whole test. Then I was doing my 1,500 meter fin. Got to about lap 4, stopped on the gunnel. I was like, man, fuck this shit, Instructors looked at me. They go, well, you had enough, Dan? I said, you know what, man? I've had enough. This is it. I'm broke. I know when I'm broke. I was 32 or 33 years old at the time, man. It's not like I was a young punk. I know when to call it, They almost kicked me out of the course, man. I don't know if you guys know, well, I won't say any names, but the commandant at the time was like, Dan, I think we're going to just kick you out of the pipeline. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And somehow one of the instructors, who's a really good friend of mine right now and has been for a really long time, kind of came to my aid. We didn't even know. He's like, hey, man, the dude's been a ranger. He's done SF. Let him heal. Let him recycle to the next pre-scuba class, and we'll see how he does. Well, I can tell you this, man. Yeah, I recycled, and I went to the next pre-scuba class. I didn't really do that well at pre-scuba, man. I mean, I am good in the water. I'm very confident. It's like my second home. But for pre-scuba, it's a whole different animal, but I did pass it. So I ended up going down to Key West, which was August 2001 is when we started. And I had no intentions of doing anything, great in that class. I just wanted to get by. I just wanted to graduate the motherfucker and get it over with. But Key West is no joke, man. And that was the school that I had been longing for. That was really one of the challenges and one of the schools that, if anything I wanted to do in the military, I wanted to prove myself that I was that good in the water. I can backtrack a little bit. I was on a swim team for 6 years, and in high school, I kind of blew it. I could have got a college scholarship for swimming, but me being a punk and wanting to party and do all that kind of thing, kind of blew it. So it was sweet redemption. So my point is, I graduated with honors at JFK, and I was the first controller in like 3 or 4 years to graduate as honor grad. Man, I tell you what, when they told me that was my chair, I told them to fuck off. I thought it was a joke. But, yeah, right? They go, no, that's your chair, man. I was like, yeah, whatever, dude. 9/11 happened while we were there. That was crazy. The skies went completely silent. And, I mean, people were, we had, special forces instructors. We had PJ instructors, combat control instructors. We had Ranger instructors. We even had a SEAL there at JFK, which I thought was strange. But, that just is a testament of what kind of school that is. It had all the service, special operations that were SOCOM related. That's why, the MARSOC guys weren't there. They weren't playing at the time. So that was a big deal, man. So I came back here. I was kind of like a hero. I mean, Holbrook put me up on a pedestal. We're Channel 3. I was on news and shit. I was even in the paper here. It's crazy, man. So that was my claim to fame. Then the pipeline, after that, went to Halo. Halo was just fun, man, and then we started our small unit tactics, which, it's kind of funny for me because as a Ranger, I never used a plugger or a GPS or anything like that. Here in this pipeline, one of my comrades, he was PJ, Nate Morrison. I don't know if you ever heard that guy's name before, but he's got a good story on me. We were doing land nav, and I couldn't get that damn plugger to work. And one of the instructors comes up to me, and he goes, I'm going to take that from you. I was like, oh, okay. And he ends up taking it. He goes, well, I'm going to give you the protractor, map, compass. And I swiped it out of his hands. I was like, fuck yeah. And I was gone. Back to basics, brother, But, Well,
it's funny. It's I'm glad you talked about that briefly, and I'll just step in real quick. It's funny because a lot of these new age operators,
yeah,
especially on the TACP side, I don't know how it is over on the combat control side. I'm sure when some of these guys watch this, they'll make comments.
Right.
But I was doing a training event when I was the unit training manager, and a lot of these guys were like, okay.
Does that look familiar to you?
That looks very familiar.
That's y'all's course, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I got that from? I got that from your boy Zags.
Fucking
Zagorski.
I've been meaning to go out there and, do a couple legs, man, because I love land nav that much.
Oh, I got to step away real quick. I have to get my battery charger for my computer. But please continue real quick. I'll be right back. I just got to get my charger so my computer doesn't die.
Yeah, do that, man.
Zagorski.
Yeah, old Zags, man. Zags has always been good to me.
Yeah, he was one of our instructors when we went through.
That's what I figured, man. That's a smart dude, man. He's currently employed, I think, with Harris. He's been with Harris for, I'd say, 8-9 years now.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah, I mean, he is a radio guru, man. He's got those radios down. Yeah, it's definitely his niche. So, yeah, he hooked me up. Like I said, I want to take some of the guys out that I'm training currently here in Fort Walton, if they're interested, and do some of those legs, man.
Yeah.
And see how it goes. Of course, have the GPS on the side, but teach them the basics. You got the 1/50, get the protractor and compass out. And I don't think there's a declination on here. I don't see one.
It's
So
not big. If it is, I can't remember what it was.
I don't think it's a factor. You know what I
It's
mean?
not big, yeah.
And that's why it's not on there, or else it would be. Because some areas are like sometimes they're 11 degrees off. You know?
Yeah, Fort Drum is like that.
Yeah, right.
That place is not bad. So, dude, I had a similar experience to you. The second to last day in the field, I sprained my ankle.
Yeah,
like a grapefruit on one.
Exactly.
Like,
that thing was huge.
And I tried to. They sent me to the hospital, and then because I had already washed back once in the field.
Oh yeah.
And this was my second to last day, my second time through, and the doctor was like, "You can't. You have to wash back again." And I was like, fuck you. I got 1 day left. I'm just going to tough it out.
Yeah.
I had a double hernia.
What?
I ended up with a double hernia.
Oh, yeah, that's right, man. How'd that go for you?
I went back and I finished the field.
I had 3 balls.
And,
go ahead, Duche.
2 weeks after the field, we had a PT test. And my waiver expired the day before the PT test. And I just didn't have time to go get out of class and go renew it. So that day I went up to Zagorski and I was like, hey, I just want to let you know my waiver's expired, and all the instructors knew about my ankle. I was like, what do you want me to do? And he goes, don't fall out. That's what he said to me. So,
I can see that.
So I do this PT test on my ankle, and I ended up beating half the dudes on the run. I got
there you go, man. Yep.
Yeah, I still ran a 14:32 mile, and then from that day, the rest of until I graduated, Zagorski, I don't know why. To this day, I don't know why. Every time he goes, every time you see me, you're gonna do push-ups until I leave. He would come into my classroom. He wasn't even my instructor at the time. He would just walk into the classroom and hang out for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, you're doing push-ups, huh?
Yeah. And he goes, do you like me yet? While I'm doing push-ups, I was like, negative, Sergeant. I don't like you. And he goes, all right. Well, we'll keep doing push-ups until you like me. And it got to be so bad that the other students would get a break,
Yeah, while you're getting your ass handed to you.
And I would be in there doing push-ups while they're on break. And they felt so bad for me that they're like, can I relieve him? And Zags was like, nope. And I never did. I never, ever gave in. I never said that I liked him. So
yeah.
He's going to be pretty stoked that he was brought up in this.
I know, right? Yeah. Love you long time.
I talked to him the other day, actually.
That's my love for him. He's a good dude, man.
You can tell him I like him now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I have one of the dudes, Jerry probably knows him, Wes Brooks. You remember him, Jerry?
Yep.
Redhead. That was one of my instructors at CCS, and he actually came up to me and talked about that. They were bartering on me, man. I think $50 a head. There was 8 instructors and a couple others, and after, it was on the nasty nick where I fucked up my ankle. Yeah, they carried me off, and I mean, they were all tossing money around. You think he's gonna make it or not? I think the pot was up to something like $500. So pretty good fucking instructors, man. This is bullshit.
Well, that's the thing that I came to find is these guys, even with me being an instructor later in my career, it's the damnedest things that you do that these guys appreciate more than anything else.
Right, man. I'll never forget that. He was like, man, it's water under the bridge. We didn't mean to do all that. I said, I wouldn't expect anything less. I did. I said, man, I don't hold any ill will towards you at all, man. If you wouldn't have done what you did, it's just part of it, dealing with your shit and driving on. There's plenty of people out there, that have broken legs or whatever and still carried on. If you can't deal with it now, situation like you, Jerry, being in combat and being able to keep your composure and all shit hitting the fan and still being able to call, bombs on target. That's what it really boils down to, training, taking that training seriously, train like you fight, man. It's kind of what it boils down to, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it is. It really is that, and unfortunately, I think that's lost a lot these days. Once these guys make it out of the pipelines,
Yeah.
not inside the pipelines. I really think it's lost outside the pipelines.
Right. Yeah.
People get complacent and lazy.
Tempo is through the roof too, man. You know, either you're on board or you're not.
So we got, I see a countdown at the top of my computer here, unfortunately.
Oh, do
Well,
you?
I think it's because he's recording.
Yes, it's because he's recording.
You're
But
the one
what we can do is we'll continue on with this. So what we'll end up doing is starting another meeting after this, if you guys are good with that.
Oh, I do see it. 6:54. Yeah.
But before we transition over and we have to start the new meeting to this, for you, Rhymes, what, like, my question would be going through selection for Ranger, going through selection for SF, going through selection for combat control. What is one common denominator that you've seen?
You know, I get a question like that. All those selections, and I get the question of which one was the hardest. They were all hard, man. It's all perspective, you know. Common denominator is, dude, you're wearing the shirt right there, NFQ, and just the pure will of being so stupid not to quit. You know, that's what I say. I was too stupid. I just drive it on. No matter what happened to me, I wouldn't let anything get in the way of my goal, and that's how I kind of focused on all my selections. I didn't let, even outside interferences. I just compartmentalized, man. I think you guys can relate with that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like in the TAC P, when I went back through TAC P, I actually went to quit.
Yeah.
Because I had enough.
The instructors are always going to work on that part of you that they know that's weak. They're going to figure it out, right? Doing a day in, day out deal, that's one of the instructor's primary duties, is to find out what that person is weak at, what that little thing is that's going to bother him, or it's going to make him second guess himself.
Well, ironically enough, I mean, you guys brought up Zagorski. I'll bring up Brett Ramos. I believe he's a retired chief now.
Right.
He retired out of the Guard. But he was one of my instructors. And when I went to his office, I was like, I fucking had it. I'm done. I quit. And he's like, that's not happening today, brother.
That's awesome, man.
He's like, you could be the epitome of a TAC P.
Right.
He's like, you're going to continue this training. I'm not letting you quit.
That's awesome. That's a good instructor right there, man.
Yeah.
He saw a lot of potential in you, and he wanted to make sure that you carried it out,
Yeah, and that's what I did for 15 years. I did what I was okay at. Apparently, I wasn't the greatest in garrison, but I knew how to do the job overseas.
Hey, I always say that, we're just a bunch of controlled degenerates, We decided to join the military, and they try and keep us on a leash, but, bunch of misfits, outlaws.
Yeah. Well, so back then when we went through TAC P school, you couldn't self-eliminate. We didn't have like a bell or an air horn.
You could still DOR. You could still do DOR, but the instructors were very selective on if they would allow you to DOR.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the instructors, they know.
If you were a shitbag, they would be like, yeah, you know what? You don't belong here. We're going to send you to security forces.
Yo, you were there that morning.
High-speed Raven, right?
You were there that morning when we all got woken up by, what was it, like 1:30 in the fucking morning? And me and Alvarado were bunkmates. And the dude didn't wake me up when he was woken up to come downstairs. And so everybody, I get woken up by his name was Sergeant Nishimoto, like all up in my shit. Like if he could be any closer, we would have been cuddling in bed. You know? But I mean, I get downstairs and the entire debt is in the front leaning rest.
Yeah, I rolled into NDOC like that. I didn't have to report for 4 hours. My dad drove me out there. I had 103-degree temperature. He turns the corner. The whole class for NDOC was out there in the diamond push-up position. All the windows were open. Curtains were coming out the window. There are beds out in the middle of the floor. This is like a 3-floor, billeting. Clothes were strewn all over the place. Guys were getting smoked. I hit the floor of my dad's truck and told him to back up. And my dad's like, what's going on? I was like, I don't fucking care. I'm not doing this right now. I don't have to report for another 4 hours. So, fuck this. And, yeah, I got there after the smoking was complete. But, of course, day one, it was back on. I just didn't need to start it that soon. I'm like, fuck that, dude. It's hilarious to look back on that because I hit the floor of the passenger side of his truck, and he's like, what are you doing? I was like, back up. I want no part of this.
Well, I think, too, the reason I brought that up is because if we could have self-eliminated the way the other schools do,
yeah,
then we would have had, like, a few people in each class left.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
A lot of people wouldn't have made it.
Yeah, I agree with that to some degree. But then again, that's the difference between the Air Force and, the Army. At least the Army in basic training, they get you up to speed. You're rucking. You're doing all that stuff out in the field. Whereas, the Air Force, from what I've seen, you're just going through the motions to get military oriented. And then all of a sudden you're into your selection. Isn't that how it kind of worked out for you guys? I mean, you rolled from Lackland. I guess you came here first. Is that how it worked?
Yeah, we rolled out of Lackland. We went to Hurlburt at the time.
Yeah.
Straight from Lackland, straight into the fucking line.
So the thing is it was really, really tough for you guys because you didn't have a ground pounding background. You weren't even coached in that, so you were thrown into the fire, man.
Yeah.
And, I can take a lot of credit for what the Army did for me, but quality of life is